Have you ever heard the sound of freedom?
Welcome to another 5-Minute Flip.
What is up, Flip-Eponymai? Welcome to your 5-Minute Flip for March 4th, 2026. So this is wild. All right, this is like no other Flip Side or 5-Minute Flip episode ever. I want you to brace yourself. Okay, so my book, Beyond the Battle, I got an email from a reader who is involved in leading some groups and in some recovery ministry. And they took chapter 9 from Beyond the Battle, which is about embracing reality. It's about rejecting fantasy. And they put it into an AI podcast format using an app called Notebook LM. I have zero familiarity with Notebook LM, so I'm just giving the citation of where this came from. And he sent it to me, and I'm like, what the heck is an AI podcast? Well, I found out, and you are about to find out as well. So what you're going to hear are two AI voices. These are artificial intelligence robot people talking about my chapter 9 of Beyond the Battle, and they are co-hosts of a radio show. You know, that's the vibe of this what you're about to listen to. Here's a couple. First of all, I don't know what to think. Okay, so I don't know what to think of AI robots talking about my book. So I am not fully endorsing this format. And with it, there's a part of me that goes, this is so hilarious. Like, it's so bizarre and weird. So I'm playing it as a 5-minute flip to give you a little bit of the bizarre and weird, because we like to do that here on the flip side. But the thing that is wild is, as I'm listening to it, first of all, it is crazy realistic sounding the way these two people talk. They don't sound like Siri or Alexa or whatever. They sound like people. They do not sound like robots in any way at all. The only way you'd know they're robot people is that their voices they're so good at it. Like, they're so good at being radio DJs. They never say or like or pause. They're just boom, 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 feeding off each other. But this sounds like the best radio talk show hosts that are in existence, the way they flow and talk. And what I want you to know, for those that haven't read Beyond the Battle or maybe haven't read it in a while, that all of the content that they're talking about, the examples, the references, these are direct verbatim from chapter 9 of my book. It's crazy. So they start talking about this bear, and it's one of the examples I use, one of the illustrations. But then, I'll wrap up with this and kick it over to the AI talk show hosts. What's crazy is that these AI bots, they are making really helpful conclusions to the points I'm making in my book. Like, if you just listen to this, you would go, that was really helpful, and I learned so much, and I grew from it. It's like what they're saying is better than what's in my book. So I'm just playing it. I want to hear from you. I would love for our Patreon membership folks over patreon.com/NoahFlipiak. If you want to get in on that, send me a message over there. I would really love to hear what you think. I I'm very intrigued. I'm entertained. I'm laughing. I'm also like, this is amazing. Like, people could learn so much from my book just from this. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. So with that, we'll kick it over to our friends at The Deep Dive.
Okay, I have to start with the bear. I know we have a lot of serious ground to cover today, but I cannot get past the bear.
The bear. You mean the guy in California?
Yes.
Yeah.
The guy who was so engrossed in his phone, texting or, doom scrolling, that he almost walked directly into a literal 400-pound bear. in a residential neighborhood.
It sounds like a cartoon, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's a perfect example of the whole phenomenon.
It really is. And it's not just him. We've got the woman falling into the mall fountain that's like classic viral video material.
Oh, I remember that one.
And the hippie who walked straight off a pier into Lake Michigan, the Coast Guard had to fish her out because she was checking Facebook.
It's funny in a slapstick kind of way, but then you look at the emergency room data and it gets serious. In 2014 alone, something like, 2,500 people ended up in hospitals specifically from distracted walking.
And that's before Pokemon Go.
Oh, that's way before Pokemon Go, where people were literally walking off 75-foot cliffs.
So we are physically checking out. We are navigating the world on autopilot while our brains are somewhere else. But here's where I want to pivot, because the physical stuff is just the tip of the iceberg.
Well.
We are looking at Noah Filipiak's Beyond the Battle today, and he argues this is a symptom of something way deeper.
Right. If you think walking into a bear is dangerous, wait until you see what happens when you mentally walk away from your actual life. This deep dive is really an exploration of that tension between fantasy and reality.
Okay, so let's define terms, because fantasy immediately makes me think of, dragons or winning the lottery. But Filipiak is using a much sharper definition here.
He is. In this context, fantasy isn't just imagination, it's a false reality that you substitute for actual reality. It's a coping mechanism, really, a place you go to escape.
And reality, what's his definition of that?
Reality is the dirt beneath your feet. It's gravity, the fact you need oxygen. But for this discussion, it's your mortgage. It's that specific conflict you're having with your spouse. It's your boss being a jerk. It's the stuff you can't just wish away.
See, that's the rub, isn't it? Reality is often, it's boring or painful, whereas in my fantasy, I can punch my boss and everyone applauds.
Exactly. Or you can live in Tahiti. Or have a partner who never argues and finds all your jokes hilarious. Fantasy is a world with no consequences.
But Filipiak's core thesis is real is all we have. And he uses this really visceral analogy of a fantasy diet.
This one really stuck with me.
Me too. He asks you to imagine what would happen if you decided to only eat fantasy food and breathe fantasy air.
I mean, in your head, that food is amazing, right?
Yeah.
0 calories, all flavor.
Totally. But physically.
You starve. You die. And his argument is that this applies emotionally and spiritually, too. If you rely on fantasy for your emotional or sexual sustenance, you are slowly starving your reality. You become a shell because you're feeding on something that doesn't exist.
But hold on a second. Is it really that binary? Isn't a little escapism healthy? We all watch movies. Why does he call it a parasite? That feels aggressive.
It is aggressive, but he argues it's accurate because of how it works. A parasite feeds off the host, right? It weakens it to sustain itself. Filipiak says fantasy sucks the energy out of the real world. You spend your best mental energy, your excitement, your desire, living in a world that doesn't exist, you have nothing left for the world that does.
So the real world starts to look even bleaker in comparison.
Precisely. It creates this feedback loop. You escape to fantasy because reality is hard, but because you spent your energy there, you don't invest in fixing reality, so reality gets harder. So you escape more.
That makes a scary amount of sense. And technology has basically put this loop on hyperspeed.
Oh, absolutely. Think about video games. The author talks about the Atari 2600, beige squares moving against other beige squares. You had to use a lot of imagination to pretend that was football.
I remember those. You were basically squinting at pixels.
Compare that to today. Hyper-realistic violence, hyper-realistic sexuality, haptic feedback suits, VR. The line is blurring. And he poses this thought experiment. Imagine a game so entertaining, so perfectly immersive that you never want to leave.
Like the Lotus Eaters in the Odyssey. You just stay.
If that game existed, you would starve to death playing it. Because the fantasy would be more captivating than the biological need to eat. And he says we're already there mentally with pornography, emotional affairs, just what-if scenarios. They're parasitic. They make the boredom of bills and dishes feel unbearable.
Okay, let's drill down into the relationship side of this, because I think this is where most of us unknowingly host this parasite. The what-if game.
He calls it the married man's fantasy, but it really applies to everyone. It's that running list of hypotheticals.
And I think we've all done this. What if I had married my ex from college? What if I was single and could just spend my money on a motorcycle?
What if my partner had a higher sex drive?
Yeah, that one. It feels like harmless venting, but Filipiak argues these are dangerous false realities. Because in the fantasy, you get the motorcycle, but you don't get the loneliness. You get the affair, but not the lawyer fees or the custody battle.
You're cherry-picking the assets and ignoring all the liability.
Exactly. And this is where he brings in the heavy artillery. Doctors John and Julie Gottman, they're like the gold standard in relationship research.
I've heard of them.
Yeah.
They can predict divorce with, like, terrifying accuracy.
They can. And one of their key findings is the idea of perpetual problems. Their research shows that about 69% of conflict in a marriage is perpetual. It never goes away.
Wait, 69%, so nearly 70%. So if I'm arguing with my spouse about how to load the dishwasher, we're probably going to be arguing about that in 20 years.
Likely, yes. And here's the kicker for the what-if fantasy. When you fantasize about leaving your partner for someone better, you aren't escaping problems. You are simply trading one set of perpetual problems for a different set.
Wow. That is a buzzkill, but a really necessary one.
It just dismantles the whole fantasy. You think, if I was with her, I wouldn't have this problem. And that's true, but you'd have a new problem that you can't even see yet.
Because she's still a fantasy figure, not a real person leaving socks on the floor.
Right. There's a story in the book that really drives this home. Filipiak talks about taking a compatibility test with his wife a couple of years into their marriage.
This is such a brave admission. They sat down, separate rooms, filled out hundreds of questions, likes, dislikes, habits, everything. And then they hit compare.
And the result was 0 matches.
0.
I mean, statistically, you'd think they'd agree on pizza toppings or something, but 0.
It completely rocked him. His first thought was, I made a mistake. I married the wrong person.
Yeah.
By every cultural metric, they were a disaster.
But he didn't leave. And this leads to what he calls the theological pivot. Now, we're just reporting on this impartially, but his argument here is really the linchpin of the book.
It is. He argues that the whole concept of the wrong person is a myth. That feeling of deep incompatibility, that this person doesn't complete me feeling. He says it isn't a sign to leave. It's a sign that you're looking for a human to do a job that, in his view, only God can do.
So we put these savior expectations on our partners. We want them to be our best friend, lover, therapist, career coach.
Our constant source of validation. And when they fail, because they're human, we think wrong person.
Right. He suggests that dissatisfaction is a spiritual check engine light. It's not pointing at your spouse. It's pointing at your own misplaced worship. You're trying to squeeze something divine out of another flawed person.
Which actually takes a lot of pressure off the spouse, if you think about it. If I stop expecting you to be my Herod, everything I can appreciate you for who you actually are.
Exactly. It lowers the stakes in a really healthy way.
So what about people who aren't married? The book has a specific reality check for single men, and this dynamic was fascinating. The golden-haired woman.
The archetype of perfection. He says, for the single guy, especially the serial dater, there's this cycle. You meet someone, she's the golden-haired woman, always made up, smells great, laughs at your jokes.
She's mysterious.
She's a movie trailer, all the best parts, none of the plot holes.
Right. But inevitably, if the relationship progresses, the girlfriend becomes a wife or just the real partner.
And the illusion shatters.
It has to. The real partner is a human. She gets the flu, she gets stressed, she asks you why you haven't balanced the checkbook. She stops looking at you with total adoration and starts looking at you with expectation.
And Filipiak says this is the moment so many men just bail.
They bail because they're addicted to the fantasy. They're not looking for a person. They're looking for a mirror that reflects a perfect version of themselves. They run from the boredom of reality to find the next golden-haired woman.
It's a treadmill. You're running really fast but going nowhere.
And the flip side of that is the singleness trap, the waiting room mentality.
The idea that real life starts when I get married.
Yes, if I were married, I wouldn't be lonely. I wouldn't struggle with this. I'd be happy. And he warns that this is just another fantasy. If you aren't investing in your reality now, your friendships, your community marriage won't magically fix you. It'll just expose the cracks that are already there.
So he's basically saying, don't treat your current life like a throwaway season. It's valid.
It's valid, and it's the only reality you have. Invest in it.
Speaking of high stakes and reality, we have to talk about the Lego theory. This is probably the most practical tool in the whole deep dive, but it comes from a really dark place for the author.
This was back in 2007. Filipiak was a pastor, a public figure, but privately he was just done. He was convinced he needed a divorce.
And he describes this seduction, he calls it a spiritual deception, that divorce would be clean.
That's the Lego theory. The idea that a marriage is just 2 Lego bricks snapped together and divorce is just unsnapping them.
Click, you go your way, I go mine.
A clean break, no damage to the bricks, which is the ultimate fantasy. So to fight this, he did something incredibly analytical. He sat down and forced himself to write out his 3 choices and the actual ripple effects, not the fantasy versions.
Okay, let's walk through these. I think anyone facing a big decision should do this. Choice 1 was divorce and run.
Right. The fantasy version of that was pretty seductive. Move to San Diego, live by the beach, work at Starbucks, total freedom.
Like hitting a reset button.
But then he wrote the reality version. What does that actually look like? It meant hollow sex with insecure people. It meant being labeled a user. The total destruction of his ministry, his career would be over. He'd be a hypocrite. He'd disappoint his family.
So not a clean break, a bomb.
A nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Scorched earth. He realized he wouldn't be free in San Diego. He'd be carrying this backpack full of shame and broken relationships.
Then he looked at choice 3. We'll skip to 3 for a second. That was status quo.
This was live conflicted. Stay married, but keep the secret life. Keep the resentment, the porn habit.
He even admitted he was secretly wishing his wife would just leave him so he wouldn't have to be the bad guy.
Which is cowardly, and he owned that. He identified choice 3 as a slow death, rotting from the inside out. He realized it was the absolute worst option of all.
So that left choice 2, persevere.
But not just grit your teeth and be miserable. Choice 2 was dive in, a conscious decision to kill the fantasy and embrace the reality he was in.
Which brings us to the how, because embrace reality sounds nice on a bumper sticker, but when you're angry or bored, how do you actually do it?
This is where he challenges that old saying, the grass is greener on the other side.
We've all said it.
He replaces it with a quote from Neil Barringham. The grass is greener where you water it.
The grass is greener where you water it. Okay, so how do I water the grass when I don't even like the lawn?
Through action, not feeling. This is the critical part. He developed a newly programmed response. He realized every time he fed the fantasy, he starved his marriage. So he flipped the circuit.
Give us the examples.
If he felt the urge to look at porn, his main escape, he would immediately get up and go do the dishes.
Okay, that feels unrelated. How does doing dishes fix a porn addiction?
It's about breaking the neural pathway. It's a physical redirection of energy. Instead of pouring that energy into the void of fantasy, he poured it into a small act of service for his reality, his household. If he found himself fantasizing about a woman at the gym, he would stop and go buy his wife flowers.
It sounds a bit robotic, though. I am tempted, therefore I will buy flowers.
And at first, it is robotic. He warns about this. Do not do this for a kickback. It isn't transactional. You don't do the dishes and then stand there waiting for your wife to praise you.
Because that's just another fantasy, the fantasy that I'm the hero who deserves a reward.
Exactly. You do it to kill the parasite. The logic is, I have a finite amount of emotional energy. If I give it to the fantasy, my reality withers. If I give it to reality, even when I don't feel like it, eventually the grass starts to grow.
And when your own lawn gets green, when your connection deepens because you're actually there, the other lawns stop looking so appealing.
That's the goal. You de-weaponize the distraction because you're no longer starving.
It effectively reverses that loop we talked about earlier. Instead of a downward spiral of escape and neglect, it's an upward spiral of investment and growth.
Right. And it applies to everything. Bored with your job. Stop fantasizing about the lottery and start investing in your skills. Water the grass where you are.
So if we zoom out, what's the big takeaway here? We've covered distracted walking, perfect video games, the right person illusion, the Lego theory.
I think the summary is that fantasy isn't a neutral playground. It's a competitor. It fights for your time, your affection, your energy.
It's a zero-sum game.
It is. And the solution isn't just willpower. It's a shift in value. Deciding that reality, with all its dirt and bills and perpetual problems, is the only place where life actually happens. You can't hug a fantasy. You can't build a legacy in a daydream.
He compares it to coming up for air after being underwater.
Which is a beautiful image. Reality is the oxygen. It might be cold and might be harsh sometimes, but it's the only thing we can breathe.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with a question. We've talked a lot about energy and spending your mental currency.
The reality bank account.
Exactly. So if every ounce of energy you spend on what-if scenarios, replaying the past, fantasizing about a different future, escaping into a screen is actually stolen from your real life, what is your balance right now?
That's the question to sit with.
Are you bankrupting your actual future to pay for a mental life that doesn't exist?
And if you are, pick up a watering can. Start where you are.
And maybe look up from your phone so you don't walk into a bear.
Please don't walk into a bear.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this 5-minute flip. Subscribe for more flips and long-form episodes of The Flip Side. Visit www.patreon.com/NoahFilipiak to support and get sweet Flipside swag.